Hello everybody and welcome back to Piano Practice Partner. I hope you're doing well and have enjoyed the previous lessons where we've been looking at some brand new scales. If you're new to the channel, I'm learning piano and I'm feeding back everything in real time to you, who I'm assuming is also learning the piano. So by us growing and learning together and building a little community of other pianists learning together, we're not going to get left behind. Hopefully we're not going to get overwhelmed. Everything is very much within our grasp. And once I get really good at the piano, by proxy, you'll be really good at the piano. So win-win. So within our last two lessons, we looked at two new scales. We looked at the F major scale, which looked and sounded like this. And then the following week, we also learnt the G major scale, which looks and sounds like this. Fantastic. Another thing to say about this channel is we usually run a lesson 1 week where we learn a concept and then a practice along video which is related to that lesson. So we'll take what we learned in that lesson and we'll apply it to a dedicated practice along session where I'll set a timer, mute my piano so I'm not distracting you, and we'll practice along together. So the very first scale we learned on the piano was this C major scale, which, as we know by now, really simple, really easy to play because it's all white notes. There are no sharps or flats, which is the point of today's discussion. You'll see here, poof, sharp versus flat, who wins? Well, as we know, if we move chromatically up the scale, let's say all of the notes. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and then back to C, which is the octave. So from C to C. And we learnt in those first lessons, there are only 12 notes. So rather than getting overwhelmed by all of this nonsense, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 notes. So only 12 notes to worry about. Great. Now you'll have noticed on the way up as we labelled all those notes, we refer to each one of these black notes as a sharp note. And previously we've spoken about when you move up the scale, you can think of them as a sharp note. Let's see how we label them when we move down. C, B, B flat, A flat, G, G flat, F, E flat, D, D flat, and back down to the C. So let's pick a note that we could either move up or down to a black note. Let's pick this G. So here we are on our white note, G. If we were to move one note up, immediately up, we would arrive at this black note. So we could refer to this as G sharp. Let's come back to our G. If we were to move one note down, we could refer to this as G flat. G, we move up, G sharp. G, we move down, G flat. So, okay, that kind of makes sense, but is there a rule? Is there anything really useful for us to know? Yes, there is. In fact, one of you in the community here at Piano Practice Partner pointed it out, and I later clarified with my piano teacher if this were true, and it was. There's a really handy way to know when it's a sharp and when it's a flat. And let's go back to our F major scale, because I got it wrong. I'm happy to admit that. We're going to clarify it now, and I think it's really useful. So this is what we learned. We learnt the F major scale correctly. Don't worry, I'm not going to mislead you that much. But let's write out the notes of how I taught it. So we've got F, G, A sharp, C, D, E, F. So these are the notes of our F major scale. One black note here. However, there's a rule to help us when we're thinking of notes in a scale. And the rule is, let's have a look here. We labelled it as an A sharp, but as we can see, it's already got an A within the scale. So rather than run the risk of being slightly confusing by sharing a same note value, so here A and A sharp, what would happen here is instead of referring to this as A sharp, this would now become its other name, which, as we've learned, if we're moving down, would be B flat. So rather than F, G, A sharp, because that's an A and an A, it now becomes F, G, A, B flat. And then we carry on C, D, E, F. So nothing's changed. We learnt the scale entirely correctly. However, whether we refer to it as a sharp or a flat depends entirely on whether it shares a same letter value. So see now, there's no conflicting A within the scale. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. That's fantastic. And actually, that does make more sense. But nothing's changed for us in terms of the playing. We just refer to this as B flat now instead of A sharp. So let's quickly look at the following scale we learned in the next lesson, which was the G major. And in this, we labelled the notes as such. So we had G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, very badly written F sharp, and G. So were we correct to label it F sharp? Yes, we were, because there's no other F in the scale. There's no F natural, and therefore we're free to use without any ambiguity the F sharp. But that's, in a nutshell, when we'd use a sharp or when we'd use a flat. They can't be sharing territory. They're very defensive. So with that incorrect version of F major that we accidentally learned, we learned the right scale, we just refer to it in an incorrect form. F, G, A, we said A sharp, but A and A sharp, very confusing. So the A sharp now becomes B flat. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So maybe go through any other scales you've learned and think, have I been referring to the sharps and flats correctly? Have I been referring to two next door neighbours that even though they remain next door neighbours, they just want to be referred to slightly differently, just for ease? So that's today's lesson, just a really quick little one, just to clarify moving forward, because we're going to be delving back into some more scales and in our practice along sessions, shredding some more scales to get them really under our fingers, to keep ourselves nice and fluid and nimble and get our brain working within this theory, because we're going to be learning loads of songs soon and some soloing within those songs. It really benefits us to know the scales and have the dexterity under our fingers to be able to deal with that. So there's a lot of front loading happening right now, but it's going to pay off. Trust me, I cannot wait to get there with you. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember to drop me a comment down below to let me know your wins of the week, where you're learning from, anything you'd like to learn in the future, any things I've missed. And yeah, I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you real soon on Piano Practice Partner.